order. I'm gonna assume it's right at 7 p.m., November 27th, 2023. That's actually not.
Did I give you the wrong one?
It's actually January 15th, 2024.
It's the wrong one.
But I did go ahead and say it.
Okay, it's just the wrong date on
All
it.
right. So we have a quorum, we've got
There we
Cody
go.
missing.
It's the 15th.
Thank you.
It's the 15th on your script.
Oh, 15, yeah, got it.
Okay. So let's move on. Derek, if you would not mind leading us in our invocation, and then immediately after that, we'll do our pledge.
Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this new year, for bringing us here together tonight. We pray for protection for those still coming, those when we leave to go home. God, we pray for this school district, for all the faculty, staff, students, parents, whoever else I'm forgetting. Lord, I pray for strength, guidance. God, I pray that you would meet everyone where they're at today, every situation. Pray that you would be the center of that situation, Lord. God, you promise in your word that if we trust in you, lean not to our own understanding, that you'll direct us, and we ask for that direction tonight, Lord. In your name, amen.
Amen. All right, let's stand and face the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, Dr. Miracle, number 4 there.
Well, number 4 is, if you'll notice in front of you, there's a box of some snack things and some cards, and then a new, I guess, new clipboard. The faculty and staff of the school district have gone together and provided this for you with an appreciation for all that you do throughout the year, and just a way of saying thank you. So, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Appreciate
Very
it.
nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's grapes and cheese and crackers and tea over there. And so stay a long time. Or not.
To go, please.
Okay, do we have any citizen participation tonight? None of that. All right, consent agenda, 6.1 is approved minutes of the previous meeting. I'm sure everyone has already read through those. Were there any changes to the minutes? Anybody has any? Okay. All right, then comparison and revenue to budget, 6.2.
Well, we're right on track. Everything's going well. Our expenditures and our revenue are pretty much in line. We always like to have the revenue a little bit ahead, so that's where we are right now.
Okay. And then we've got our tax collections report.
Since the last board meeting, we've collected $545,583.36.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on the numbers? Okay, we're looking for a motion on approval for consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. All right, so 7.1 is campus reports, but what we're really gonna do is, 7.5, the presentation of Collegiate Education by Dr. Rachel McLean.
And when I got this, I didn't know Kim put on it. After I was around, so. In the minutes, it says it already, but in the script.
And we've got, she's gonna do a presentation up here, but she's also handed out for us this sheet right here goes along with that. So we'll give it over to Dr.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time, and I apologize, I usually dress up a little bit better than this for a board meeting, but I was, telling a while ago, it looked pretty rough when I left Roscoe this morning about 7, so, I apologize, but the older I get, the colder I get, so anyway. But appreciate the opportunity to be here and just kind of give you a little background, and we're gonna go pretty fast because I know that this is not the only thing on the agenda, and y'all are working all day and shivering all day and everything. But, kind of give you a little background on who I am. Don't think I'm God's gift to education or anything. I'm a farmer and a rancher from Roscoe. My family's been farming and ranching there since 1917. I was with the school district for 32 years. My wife was there 40. I was a teacher and a coach in the 80s and 90s, and then a high school principal early 2000. I was the superintendent for 17 years. And during that time, almost 25 years ago, when I was the high school principal, you know, in a school size of Roscoe, you know the kids pretty well. And like many rural schools, our demographics was changing, and we were becoming a much more economically disadvantaged population. And all of our kids would do good in school with good grades and good test scores. But for those disadvantaged students, walking across that graduation stage was a little bit like walking off a cliff. The best part of their life was now over. That led to we did our board did a year-long study with the service center. Mr. Kincaid came every month and sat down and kind of looked at what could we do to change the trajectory in Roscoe. We had declined in enrollment from about 450 students in the mid-90s to under 300. And eligible for 6-man football for the first time, and that got everybody's attention because we'd had a lot of pretty good all-state linemen that wouldn't be really a factor in 6-man football. So I'm not sure we did everything for all the right reasons. But anyway, in 2009, we became the first rural school-wide early college in Texas. And that kind of reversed that trend. And then in 2012, there were early colleges and STEM academies, and we became an early college / STEM academy. Somebody finally realized, well, college readiness is workforce readiness. And so when we did that and built the vet clinic, and that's when that changed the trajectory and went from under 300 to about 650 students pretty fast there. That was kind of an unintended consequence. We were trying to solve a Roscoe problem. But anyway, as a result of a lot of grants that we had received, we had hosted a lot of schools, mainly small and rural schools, mainly in Texas. And in 2017, all of that became what's known today as PTech, Pathways in Technology, Early College, High School. And in 2019, Commissioner Morath at TEA asked us to take what was known as the Roscoe model and become a 501c3 nonprofit, Collegiate Edunation. And so, I guess 5 years ago this month is when I retired, and I kind of retired and kind of hung around another 3 years kind of doing both, but you really weren't supposed to be doing it that way. And, but anyway, that's what we do, and 5 years ago it was me, and my wife retired in June of that year. She had 40 years. She was the chief academic officer at Roscoe for several years, and it was us in one school, Roscoe. Today we're working in about 24 districts in Texas, and we've got another 10 on the drawing board as we've realized that everybody's got the same problem, and that's what we really want to kind of talk about today and make sure everybody knows the problem. That's not just a Roscoe problem or a De Leon problem. It's a rural Texas problem. It's a rural U.S. problem. And I won't quote that for you. They say always quote a philosopher when you do a presentation. And being rural, I like Jeff Foxworthy. So anyway, but the problem is, as you look at this chart, the minimum expectation for all students has been grade 12 since 1947. And in 1947, you could take a high school diploma and good work ethic, and there was literally opportunity everywhere. 99% of the 11.8 million jobs created in the U.S. since 2008 require a post-secondary credential. And a lot of that was the driver behind House Bill 3, but only 22% of Texas high school graduates earn any kind of post-secondary credential by age 24. 6 years after graduation, and, estimated loss in lifetime earnings of 208 billion. We've redone our slide, and so it's I knew the other one, I could say it blindfolded. But, so that's kind of the problem that we're trying to address, because what we've seen is all students can be successful if they're in a strong support system. But the minute they're outside that support system, that's when the wheels really fall off. And so we've learned the importance of a support system. The pandemic, if it did anything, it only exacerbated the problem and the need for degrees, but it taught us two things. If there is a silver lining behind the pandemic, it made rural and wide open spaces look better than ever. And it taught us that we can be creative and we can create high wage, high demand jobs in these rural areas. Because another thing we're trying to do with our model is reverse that suburban movement that began back in the 1950s, where the best and brightest leave for suburban and urban areas and they'll never come back. So we're trying to bring the degrees and certifications to them, take the cost of living out of it, and at the same time create high wage, high demand jobs in these rural communities. The more disadvantaged the student is, the more barriers they face, and the sooner they face barriers. And the first barrier that a disadvantaged student will face is low expectations. Even the parents will have low expectations, and it's not that they're bad parents. They honestly don't believe their kids can be successful because they haven't been very successful. And so we really start at age 3, start really trying to create a culture of high expectations for all students, because we know that people can accomplish anything that they believe they can accomplish. And so that's why we call it a somewhat of a system redesign, to quote Bill Daggett, to prepare students for their future rather than our past. And, I'll get this argument that college isn't for everyone, and the definition of college has changed drastically in the last 10 years. Used to, when we thought of college, we thought of liberal arts degrees. Today, it's a much broader definition. Texas can't fill half of the STEM jobs because of an uneducated workforce. But there is a strong correlation in not only degree attainment, but job satisfaction and opportunity for advancement. And so really trying to create a system of high expectations for all students. Is this where you started, or do I keep going?
This is just another image of kind of the problem that we're facing in Texas, where Texas Workforce Commission says that it takes about $50,000 for a person to live comfortably. And you can see the correlation between the no associate degree up to a bachelor's degree. Like Dr. Alexander's point, there's plenty of folks that are at a different age level, but it's this group that's coming into the market. That's what we're talking about. Young folks coming into the workforce, and the impact of education and industry certifications, post-secondary credentials beyond high school, and just one more look at that. Can we talk through these?
Yeah.
So, I'm Rachel McLean, I'm the Chief of Staff with Collegiate Education. Worked in a rural school district in West Texas for many years, but I'm originally from Georgia. So, we just now are able to start talking about Georgia football again for the past few weeks. Our mission, though, is to really support and build capacity for rural school districts. It's not that the resources are not there and the desire is not there, but the challenges that are in rural are more significant sometimes than urban because of the lack of easy proximity to colleges and businesses and those type of things. But our vision really is to end generational poverty in rural America, and we know that we can do that through education. This is our network, and so as Dr. Alexander mentioned, we have multiple school districts that are in the pipeline in various stages. We also work with West Virginia and Illinois with some school districts in those areas. But basically at the current time serving 22,000 students, most of those in Texas. battery is evidently going low. And I'm gonna share this with y'all. I couldn't get the sound to work, but we didn't wanna take up too much time either. And so there's multiple embedded videos, so you don't have to just listen to us talk all the time. But, I'll share the link and then y'all can watch the videos.
And this one, just a little background, the gentleman in the middle, that's Jose Rangel, and he was our first 20 completer. His mother on the right, Pat, is one of the custodians there at Roscoe, and his dad on the left is a farm worker, so he's a first generation that really set the bar high for everybody else, and he comes back and visits all the time and tell those kids, you know, if I can do this, you can. Just set your sights high.
So we have kind of a pipeline that the districts go through, and so you're gonna hear some conversation tonight about P20 and P-TECH, two different terms. P20 is this system that starts at age 3 in pre-K and goes all the way through 2 years post-high school in the state of Texas with intentional support. P-TECH is the piece of that model that just focuses on high school alone. And that's a designation that Texas Education Agency will give high schools and districts once they apply. But basically, this is the funnel that a district would go through, starting off in that discovery phase. It's kind of what we would label y'all as right now, like we're, you know, y'all are checking us out, we're checking you out. But then as you move on into that, like making sure that your stakeholders are aligned, and that this is something that the community actually values, because this is work. You guys are doing an amazing job and a lot of great things. Every time I talk to Lisa, I'll say, what, blah, 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 and she'll be like, oh, we do that. And so lots of great things already going on.
And I'll just interject, what we call this network is a network of high-performing rural schools, because these are innovative schools that are already doing great things for students. And usually those are the kind of folks that want to see, well, just how much can we do for students? And so that's what we're trying to get that bar really high.
And so that's that stakeholder synergy, making sure that people in the community, this is what they want, this is a vision. Because you as a board, the first time that someone gets say a B in a college class and it's a career tech program of study, they might come to you, and you need to be able to say, no, this is the vision and this is what we're working towards. We spend a year or so doing some very intentional planning. You guys already have so many pieces of the model in place that it would be making sure that they're all aligning and it's all pulling in the same direction. And then time of just that continued support. And then when you kind of go forth and you start birthing other P20 districts, because people look at you and seeing what you're accomplishing, and y'all, hosting tours similar to the way Roscoe did for years. This is another image of where we're at across the state, and you can see we've got districts across the state at all different levels of that funnel process of where some are just starting the exploration, some are more engaged in planning, some are doing some implementation.
And we work very closely with AgriLife Extension, just because what I always like to point out is this is not as much an education model as it's rural economic and community development. Of course, that's what they do, so that's been a very strong partnership that we've had since 2012, and that enables us to do the school-wide 4-H and the student-directed research that enables students to work in Quadrant D. And so we were very intentional to set up 12 regional models in each of the 12 AgriLife Extension districts, just because Texas is such a big state. So, nationally, it didn't start off to be a national thing, but 2 of our board members on our nonprofit are from West Virginia. And West Virginia has similar rural issues with the decline of the coal industry and some things. And then because of our association with the American Association of its School Administrators, Dr. Valerie Truesdale is a retired superintendent in South Carolina, and she heads up the rural cohort. And so they've identified innovative schools in 11 states, and so we're having this similar conversation with other states. And what we really do is, where we don't have to reinvent the wheel and connect the dots, is we try to align rural K-12 with higher ed using the land grant infrastructure that's in every state. and the extension component of higher ed that is already reaching out into these rural areas.
We focus on 3 specific areas, that pre-K-12 arena. We do post-secondary workforce support. That's where, not just for your students that would be graduates of a P-TECH, and in Texas, you can get funding 2 additional years for those students, so very similar to the way life skills programs work. And so we have a graduate, they can come back, you get full funding for them. But then also, what can we do to develop workforce in rural communities? So a lot of our rural communities want to have some adult ed type programs as well. And then we do a lot of rural focused research and impact. We do, at the end of this month, for example, we are hosting a rural focused panel in Austin, discussing the impact of artificial intelligence on education and how that needs to look and what we as educators need to do to make those adjustments.
This is a barrier, and I'm sure y'all have talked about this. We're driven by an accountability system that's real, and we're accountable based on multiple choice testing, but the reality is you can't remove the socioeconomic bias from a multiple choice test, so we've got to live with it. That's much more of an assessment of social capital than anything else. Under the exact same conditions, an upper middle class Anglo is at a distinct advantage over someone else, and so we're trying to address those issues that are real in the current deal, but really you were probably familiar with the School Transformation Network that began back in 2005 in the visioning document that really asked the question, to whom should schools be